And it's really cool if you've ever seen Navy play anywhere. Of course, all the students are in their uniform, in their garb, and it's just so amazing and refreshing to see them. And so we had arranged for her to come up and sit on my side, and there she was, this, to me, little Amanda, in her uniform, and she's walking up 42 steps, and I'm trying to let her know where I am because, you know, any stadium is vast, and it's so hard to find the row, and she was coming up, and people saw me doing that, and then slowly the rows stood up, and people started clapping. And I became so overtaken with emotion because, of course, I wanted to ask the kids this today, but I wasn't quite sure what to do. It was, of course, they were thanking her for her service to our country, and I became so overwhelmed because to me she's Amanda, and she sat down next to me, and we enjoyed catching up and laughing and talking during the third quarter, and people were talking to her, and they were just amazed. And so then she left to go back to her section, and several people commented that they thought that was so unusual. It was that a former sixth grade student, because I was telling everyone she was in my class at Sycamore, and so they just thought that was so unusual that she came to sit with her teacher, and I said, but it's really not unusual at all because that's Amanda, and that's Sycamore.
Thanks, Miss O'Malley. So the rest of the story was that at that game in 2007 in South Bend, that was the first time that Navy had beat Notre Dame in 41 years. So we finally broke this streak, and it was awesome. Sorry. I don't think it'll ever happen again, but we'll just go with it, yeah. So it was awesome. Thank you for the introduction. It is great to be back here, and it is so fun to see so many familiar faces and relive the memories, especially when, the middle school bathrooms, somebody referred to them as a time capsule. I think that they look identical, so that's pretty cool, even with all the changes. So here we have a picture of a beautiful F-18 Hornet, which is what I fly in the Navy, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. But first, a little bit of evidence. Many of you were witnesses to this, but just going back, here's the obligatory Smoky Mountains picture in the 5th grade. I'm there in the middle in the hat. You can see Ben Borgman right in front of me. Let's see, Laura, I think you're in the next picture. But Chris McNett, yep, there he is. He's also wearing the hat. I would love if we had this slide with what everyone does now. I am so proud of many of my classmates, and anyways, there's our 5th grade evidence. And then here is our volleyball team on 8th grade graduation day. You can see Amy and Laura are both here in the audience, and my best friend Brianna is right there behind me. So we had a great time playing volleyball here at Sycamore. And Mom found this picture for me last night, actually, and I was like, oh, I love it, the volleyball picture, the volleyball girls, and we had so much fun. And then I noticed the computers on the sides. I was like, yeah, it's good. So, all right, so what I'm going to talk about here today is basically how I feel like Sycamore prepared me for what I would call the adventure of my career path as I went into the Navy and everything. So after high school, I went to the Naval Academy, and then I was commissioned as an officer in the U.S. Navy, and I started flight training from there. That took about 3 years. So you start out learning with your little single-engine propeller aircraft, and then you move up to your single-engine jet trainer, and then you move into the F-18. For me, that's the path I went, and so now you have 2 engines, which is real nice, good way to go through life as you move to the F-18. And so here I am flying through what we call Star Wars Canyon out where I'm stationed in the middle of the desert. This is really close to Death Valley. Students today were mainly interested in why it was Star Wars Canyon. So anyways, there we are. You can tell it's me because I'm super short there in the front. That is always an identifying feature. Anyways, the ways that I feel like Sycamore prepared me for this path are maybe just more, they would apply to anything, the way that Sycamore prepares you, but for me, or sometimes more magnified or intensified just due to the environment that I work in, where oftentimes you're completely on your own. We talk about how you can't pull over, you can't Google it, you got to figure it out. The other joke is you have the rest of your life to figure it out. So sometimes they're just magnified. So the 3 things are know yourself, be prepared, put those together and make it happen. So we'll go through those now. First off, know yourself. What do I mean by that? Just kind of knowing who you are and what you stand for. At Sycamore, you can very rarely get away with raising your hand in class and having some sort of opinion on really anything without defending it. Everyone wants you to think about it and why do you think that? And so you have to know why you think certain things. You also have a lot of in-depth conversations about things like morals and ethics, and you understand some of the bigger picture through the conversations that your teachers force you to have. So you know where you stand in that regard. You also know that you have value of some sort. They teach you to believe in yourself. Someone clearly believes in you. They've sent you to this school, and you become very close with your classmates over your time at Sycamore. And as quirky or as weird as they might be, you know that every single one of them brings something to the table. So you understand you have value yourself. You know who you are, how hard you're willing to work, and you also know that other people bring value too. So that's not to be taken for granted. When people have high expectations for you, just going out into the world, you see that not everyone gets that. And it's really sad when no one has ever expected something from someone. We've seen that in some of our junior sailors. And it's cool when they see them, when they rise the challenge, but no one's ever believed in them. So that's something you get at Sycamore. The way that manifested for me was pretty early on, just in flight school. And it continues, unfortunately, and I was sad to say this in front of the middle school girls, but there are a number of people who don't believe that women should fly fighter jets. And, we're a very small percentage of women. But coming from Sycamore, and the way my mama raised me, it's just not something that occurred to me. If you work hard and you can do the job, who cares who you are, what you look like, where you're from? Just do it, So it didn't really occur to me, but it became more apparent as we went. Here's a picture of me with my one of my initial squadron out in Lemoore, California, and just say which one of these is not like the others, right? So I don't exactly fit the mold of a fighter pilot. So if you wanted a real, the real deal stereotypical fighter pilot, I'm sorry, I am not it. But Sycamore just taught me you know who you are and you know what you can do, so just do it. So I thought that was a pretty cool baseline that Sycamore sent me out with. So that brings me into my next point, which is being prepared. And I told the kids, this is maybe unfortunately where Sycamore really shines. The assignments, the homework, the expectations, the tests, you can't slack. You can't get away with not being organized and doing your stuff. You just can't. It's just not, if you go into Mr. Strobel's test without having studied, it's not gonna go well. There's no way around it. So the preparation and the study skills, and that sets you up well for high school and beyond. You just know how to study and put your mind to something because they forced you to. Along with that, though, is something that's harder to put a finger on. And that's why, especially walking around today, you remember just how special Sycamore really is. And it's that desire to learn more, but also to understand what you're learning, not just rote memorization. So if you understand and you always are looking to learn more and become the subject matter expert on whatever it is, whatever field you may go into, that's really going to help out. So for me, I have what we call in the Navy a sea story for you of how, just an example of how I felt like some of these things have helped me out in very specific situations in the Navy, but really just big picture. So for this story, me and my wingman Pretzel, who was very salty and can only be enjoyed with beer, we were flying over Iraq, and we were in Operation Inherent Resolve in 2015 in the fight against ISIS, and we were called to support some U.S. Marines at Al-Assad Air Base. We were actually talking to my friend's husband. His call sign is Yard Sale. So Yard Sale Pretzel and I are all doing our thing, and we are doing what's called yo-yo tanking. So we can't stay airborne that long. We're not exactly fuel efficient. And so we have to have tankers with gas. in the sky, and is it Kellen Hayes' dad flew one of these. So here's a picture of a KC-135, a U.S. Air Force one in this case, and that's me in the Hornet, and I'm getting gas from the tanker. But so we're doing what's called yo-yo tanking. So Pretzel goes to tank, and he's supposed to come back, and when he gets back, I'll go. So there's always somebody overhead to help out the Marines, whatever they need. So Pretzel went to go tank, and he wasn't coming back. And it was time for me, I had to go tank. So I show up at the tanker, and we start figuring, I tune up their frequency as I get closer, and Pretzel is having some problems. The main one is that he's having compressor stalls on his right engine. So every time he brings the throttle off the idle stop for the right engine, just bang, bang, bang. Not good. The engine will eat itself, so he's got to keep that throttle back at idle. Okay, all right. Additionally, he has some electrical problems. We're not totally sure what, but it's a whole bunch of spurious cautions and warnings and things that are seemingly unrelated, which really sucks when you're flying because you're trying to figure out what's happening, but we deem it as electrical. We're trying to figure out the biggest problem with that was he had no indications of what's going on with his engines, and more importantly, no more information about how much fuel he had remaining. So fuel is something that is obviously very important to us, and we knew he was getting low. So we had to do some critical thinking, creative problem solving on the fly, right? We only had really what was in our head. We have a little checklist we fly with, but if that's what you're going off of, it ain't gonna be enough. So we start figuring out what's our number one problem, getting him gas. Problem is, in that particular area, the tanker couldn't go lower due to some people that would have been very happy to shoot it down. So we found another tanker in a different location. We're able to get the tanker to come downhill. The tanker's coming downhill. He can accelerate enough to get into the basket, the refueling basket to get the fuel. Tanker climbs back up, does some S-turns. He catches up. You know, we get him some gas. We figure out our problems. We prioritize. We had to get pretty creative with some of the things that were going on. He and I fly the exact same profiles so we can know his fuel burn, you know, some higher level math with how much he had and how much I had. And basically, all ends well. He goes and lands at Kuwait. I go back to the carrier to land, or as the Iraqi controllers would call it, mother sheep. So, say hatu mom, clear direct mother sheep. So it worked out because we worked together, which is another thing you learn at Sycamore, but both of us had studied the complexities of it. We knew the resources we had available, but just kind of that baseline of knowing more than the minimum and understanding what you have to get through the problem. So that worked out. The next thing is making it happen, where you put together how you know who you are, what you're capable of, and your preparation, and you just go and do it. Again, sometimes magnified. So what I have now, we're going to show a video clip here in a second, and what I'm going to be talking about is a very important time of flight, which is right when you're taking off the front end of an aircraft carrier. So the beginning of the video has some catapult launches, and once you pay attention to right when the aircraft comes off the end of the bow of the ship, because that's what we're going to talk about. And then there's some extraneous flying, just because, I mean, everybody likes watching videos of flying, right? And then at the end, there's just a little bit of that tanking, just so you can see what we're talking about with the problems that Pretzel was having. So if you could play the video. right, so the part we're going to talk about is right at the end of the launch, off the catapult stroke at the front of the carrier. So this is a very important time, right, to understand what's happening around you. There's a lot of things, we brief it every time. Every time we fly off the ship, we go through all of our procedures, our emergency procedures. So right when you come off, you want to make sure that you're flying, that nothing has happened that would cause you to crash or anything like that. So we're checking for positive rates of climb. Are we climbing up in a way that we're not sinking? And then the other thing we always brief is triple digits in the HUD. So greater than 100 knots in our heads-up display. What we typically see is closer to about 170. You want to make sure you have something that you could even level off in ground effect or something like that if you had to. So this one particular day, now I was the wingman, my lead was fungus. And thankfully, we were doing one of the launches where they launch us at the same time off the ship, so we're already joined up and ready to go. So I'm on the left, he's on the right. We go ahead, we launch off, and everything seems fine. And at the end of the catapult stroke, where you're, at least for me, usually just trying to stay conscious, I look in my HUD and I see 80 knots. Like, so I start immediately going through my emergency procedures. That preparation is kicking in. So I select maximum active burner. I'm looking for any yaw or roll or any settle, all this stuff. And I was like, I feel like I'm flying. Thank goodness this was during the day. One hand, I reach for the ejection handle, and I kind of out of the corner of my eye, I see Fungus and his airplane. They're next to me and they're flying. So I just key the radio real quick. Fungus, what's your airspeed? And he's at 250. All right. Basically, very quick assessment. I know that I'm flying, so I don't eject, which is fantastic because there's a 100,000-ton nuclear-powered aircraft carrier that is going to run over you if you eject. And there is a guy that has happened to. He was fine, even after his parachute got caught on the prop. That's a bad day. It's a real bad day. But he had emergency oxygen. Anyways, he was good. But yeah, so I didn't have to eject. Basically, so you take all that preparation and knowing that you can do it, and you put it together, and what some people call street smarts, or the situational awareness, as we refer to it in the Navy, comes together, and you make it happen. So those field trips at Sycamore, bringing it back around, or just the stuff they make you do, it's all about informed decisions and preparation and everything. So you know when you go to Key West, you can touch that sea creature, but not that one. That one's going to hurt. You understand. Like when you go out in the woods in the Smokies, and they teach you these things. And so you just make it happen. You know that you can, and you know that you've prepared, so you can do anything. So that's really just how it all comes together. I was probably supposed to show this before. That's me launching off the end there, and that's that critical moment of what is happening. So those are the 3 ways I feel like Sycamore prepared me most on this adventure, which was knowing yourself, being prepared, and then just making it happen. So thank you for having me.